Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 49. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Friday show, Dave. Week 10 of the NFL got started off with a whimper, you could say, yesterday, although good news for Pittsburgh Steelers fans as the Dolphins upset the Baltimore Ravens. And so with a, potential hopeful win Sunday against the Lions, Pittsburgh could become AFC North leaders just like that after this weekend.
Who knew, right? What a wacky parody is alive and well, I think, in the NFL right now, and it's probably just the way they want it. Keep fan bases kind of most fan bases, I guess, interacting past the midway point of the season and hopeful, if you will, and I didn't see that one coming last night at all, for sure. But the Ravens looked as flat as the Ravens could look. The short week probably didn't help them at all, playing on the road in a very kind of humid Miami. Boy, I don't miss that. Anytime I see people talking about Florida and humidity and all like that, nobody gets sympathy from me on that end of it there. But even though it got the Ravens were behind late, I still had this part of me, because I've seen it so many times this season already, that I thought the Dolphins were going to let them off the hook, as the late Dennis Green would say. But the Dolphins hung on and won that, and I didn't think we'd be talking about this ahead of this show, but here we are. The Steelers have a golden opportunity to win a game that they should could and should win, and if they do, they'll start Week 11 as atop the AFC North.
Heck of a turnaround from 1-3, that's for sure. Dave, before we talk about the Steelers and some of what the coordinator said, injury report, and in a Week 10 preview, do want to let you guys know a little bit later in the show we'll have Dave Birkett on. He's our Lions beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, Hall of Fame voter as well. We ask about Heinz Ward, Antonio Brown, James Harrison at the end of our conversation. Be sure to follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Birkett. And so we'll have him on in a bit here to talk Lions. Dave, let's start things off, though, with the injury report. And I thought things were in pretty good shape for a Monday game on Wednesday when only Ben and Claypool did not practice. Things got a little more eventful on Thursday. Ben and Claypool continuing not to practice. Claypool with that toe injury. It's not sounding great for his status on Sunday against Detroit, but some other names showing up there. Najee Harris limited with a foot, Spillane limited with an ankle, Kendrick Green limited with a hamstring, and Cam Hayward limited with an ankle injury. Eric Ebron, by the way, has practiced in full the last 2 days, so he should be good and returning to this team in some capacity on Sunday. So a couple of rookies to watch there, Harris, Green, and then Claypool, probably the biggest name in terms of being unlikely to play on Sunday.
See why we don't talk in absolutes at the beginning of the week anymore when it comes to injury report. We've been burned way too many times. Now, I think just doing this so long and seeing how these things kind of progress and all, I mean, I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth here potentially here, but I think Roethlisberger is going to be fine. I just think probably the short week plays into him not practicing these first couple of days here, and obviously the one the other day was a walkthrough. So yesterday was really the first day of practice for them this week here. Eric Ebron. Obviously, that could go either way with him. Mike Tomlin's kind of talked him up, and the fact that he is, back practicing fully here after missing the last 2 games with a hamstring injury, you would probably bet that he makes his return to the field this week. Obviously things could go south there. Robert Spillane, Isaiah Buggs, and Cam Hayward, and Kendrick Green and Najee Harris. I'll be surprised if any of those 5 guys don't play against the Lions on Sunday. And then that leaves us, I guess, last but not least, with Chase Claypool and that toe injury. And, just to him not practicing so far, it being a short week, the nature of the injury, the position that he plays, I'll be surprised if he plays against the Lions. And, the kind of reading through the I guess, hints, if you will, on social media, and that's obviously something else that's dangerous to do. It certainly seems like Anthony Miller might be preparing himself to be elevated to the inactive roster on Saturday. So we'll find out for sure. Friday or later this afternoon when the final, or what is generally reviewed as the game status injury report comes out. If Claypool is doubtful or out, I think that pretty obviously out would seal his fate there. Doubtful, I would expect him to be downgraded the previous, the next day there on Saturday there. But Saturday will be the key day to know the elevations. I would expect from where we sit right now that Anthony Miller will be elevated. I think Chase Claypool does not play, and I'm guessing that he's the only one on the injury report right now that will end up not playing on Sunday against the Lions.
Yep, I'm with you on Claypool, with you on Anthony Miller. The report was from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport that called Claypool week to week. Apparently, initially, the injury was feared to be potentially season-ending, which was like, whoa, when you read that. But not the case, as they did further testing and further evaluation. So the status for Claypool can be recorded as week to week. For the Lions, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the big injury there is running back Jamal Williams, the number 2 running back on this team behind DeAndre Swift. It kind of split time with him throughout the season, so that's it's not looking like he's going to play this weekend. So that's the biggest loss for Detroit.
Yeah, and he's more of like, I guess, the thunder to the lightning, right?
Right.
And it'd be interesting to see how much with Swift, who's a very talented back and catching the football, but to give him that kind of workload, to be interested. Although they've normally, he's probably not too tired yet this point of the season because they're normally behind. They usually have to get away from that running game as well, too. I would think maybe Jamar Jefferson, right, the rookie out of Oregon State, will probably get a little action in there. I know we've watched a little bit of tape on him prior to the draft and all like that. So I would expect him to probably be active and get some of that workload. But you're right. It's Williams, and I think the other name kind of watching, and I guess people are starting to expect Taylor Decker to make his 2021 debut on Sunday against the Steelers. I think they pulled him off IR. Then he had some sort of setback, and then they didn't want to put him back on IR because they would lose him for the season at that point. So he's had to work through his setback. It seems like he might be ready now, and that's going to open up an interesting dynamic as well too. Because if he goes back to left tackle, that means that rookie Penei Sewell goes over to right tackle. And if you remember back to that preseason game, it wasn't a great showing at right tackle there. And him, of course, welcome to right tackle. Go against T.J. Watt here. So that's an interesting side story there. I think their kicker's dealing with something too. I haven't got a good sense of whether or not he's going to be active or not on Sunday.
All right, Dave. So, we'll have final injury reports on both teams there a little bit later today. Let's move on now to the coordinators speaking, as they always do on Thursday. Matt Canada and Keith Butler talking with the media. And as usual, not a whole lot notable here, especially with Matt Canada. I thought he did have a good answer, though, on Derek Watt, and talking about how he, big fan of Derek Watt and his intelligence and his versatility, all things which are true, but just said, obviously, the snap count and usage there is going to ebb and flow week to week. It might change in-game, might increase, might decrease, but Pittsburgh had a heavier game plan against the Bears, in which Chase Claypool being out, maybe there's potential there for them to go a bit heavier against Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is, we knew this. I know a lot of people say, or have been clamoring first 4 or 5 games, get Derek Watt, on the field more and all like that. But look, when you put, you can't just throw him out there and leave the other guys on there. Somebody's got to come off. Now, with Chase Claypool potentially being out of the lineup this week, and Ebron probably getting eased back into things here, maybe it does set up for a situation. Even if Anthony Miller is elevated there, you could see them run a lot more heavier. We could see. By the way, how did you like my call about that 22 personnel last week? Or I think we could potentially see more of that. It wouldn't hurt my feelings. I think this is a Lions defense that will be begged to be run on this week, especially if they play a lot of too high safety type situations there. So I'm still waiting for that Watt wheel. We're going to get the Watt wheel this week?
I hope not. The Watt shovel
so.
was enough for me. I'm good on not throwing the ball to Derek Watt. But, yeah, I know people really clamor for seeing Watt on this offense. His snap count has slightly increased. I mean, that's been dictated by game circumstance and game flow and being up in games and getting to run the ball better. So I think there's a chance for Watt to play around 10, 12 snaps this weekend.
I'm pointing to the fence. Watt will.
Is it going to work?
Yes, 30 or more yards. Yes.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Oh, that's a heck of a shot to call. Hey, Bruce even's like, slow it down, man. I don't know about that one. Canada also talking about Pat Freiermuth, and, of course, continues to praise the rookie for the job that he's done, saying it was a great pick by, the brain trust of Tomlin and Colbert and Art Rooney II, and that, he's just gaining trust and becoming really that go-to guy in those big moments, and those got-to-have-it, third-down, red-zone type moments. That's where Freiermuth's really shining right now.
Boy, the relationship that Roethlisberger seems to be building with Freiermuth now, I'm wondering maybe Ben's second guessing maybe whether or not he wants to leave just yet. I mean, there is a lot of trust there, and Ben's being smart about trying not to let it go to the kid's head, and kind of the comments that Ben's making. But this has been the new, the safety blanket, to replace Juju, if you will. And you kind of hoped it would once this team lost Juju. This team needed something reliable in third down situations, in red zone type situations, and that seems to be him. Now, he's still probably not going to be that guy that's going to split the seam down the middle of the field and Travis Kelce-like, if you will. But, you want to talk about in the high red zone or in the red zone or goal-to-go situations, super reliable. And, the scouting report on Freiermuth was what? That he catches everything that's thrown his way, and especially when it's down there in the red zone. And it has been that right now. And you go back, you look at that touchdown, the second touchdown that he had, instead of you got mossed, you got moothed. That's the kind of play, I guess, that that the kid can make for you in there. And we know how important. Red zone trips in general across the league are very important, right? You got to convert when you're inside the red zone. Well, with this 2021 Steelers, it's super important because you just don't envision this offense getting in too many situations where they are in the red zone there overall. So you have to make sure you convert. And right now, the last several weeks in particular, Pat Freiermuth is a big reason why they are converting down there in the red zone. And if this team wants any chance to continue on into the second half of the season and get more W's moving forward here and even into the playoffs and make a push, they have got to have that type of performance, if not more, from a guy like Freiermuth, because quite honestly, really he did have that big catch late in that Ben went to him on that game-winning drive that ended up being huge there, but everything else seems to be inside the red zone. It'd be nice to start seeing maybe him used a little bit more in between the 20s.
Yeah, I think for Pittsburgh, if you're not going to be a potent, big play, explosive offense in the NFL, you better be efficient. And this team needs to be more efficient and needs to be better in the red zone than they were against Chicago. That was, I think, to me, one of the defining stats that got them out of that stadium with a victory, being 3-3 in the red zone as opposed to Chicago, who were 2-4. And so they're going to face the league's worst red zone defense in football this weekend in Detroit, allowing a touchdown over 80% of the time. And so this is a week where you should really have a lot of red zone success.
Right, and once again, I would like to see the usage of Freiermuth potentially go up more in between the 20s, and in earlier portions of the maybe of the game as well too. There, we know that what he can do in the red zone. We knew that him coming out of Penn State, what he could do in that aspect there. I'd like to see him just become a little bit maybe more of a. And this team needs that kind of guy that the offense runs through on this shorter passing game, if you will, and the guy to be the next Juju, although not just catching the football 3 yards down the field, and then trying to get something that way. If they can start integrating Pat Freiermuth a little bit more into this offense, once again in between the 20s. I think it'd have good impact overall, especially when it comes to the running game.
Anything else from Matt Canada that he talked about that's worth us talking about?
No, I mean, he just, he begrudgingly, I think, the offensive line, if he's given somebody else's comments, especially Mike Tomlin's, that says, well, Mike Tomlin said this, well, then he'll begrudgingly kind of go along with it. And that was kind of his thoughts on, the offensive line taking a step back against the Bears and all. I mean, what else is he going to say, though? Because, I mean, the tape says as much. He just says, we'll try to push through it, working hard all the time at it. I'll take responsibility for that, yada, yada, all the caveats that Matt Canada adds to some of the, to his answers there. So once again, a bunch of words, from Matt Canada, not a lot of, substance or learning anything. Right.
So let's flip over to Keith Butler, who spoke to the media as well, and maybe not as eventful of an interview as it usually is with Keith Butler, but he did kind of earnestly talk about how, because obviously TJ Watt and Steelers fans who watch that game or Monday night could see the tackles, especially that right tackle, that rookie jumping off sides or false start and jumping early but never getting called for it. And Keith Butler said, look, they're just not going to call that. It's an offensive league. They're going to get away with that kind of stuff. That's just how it is. And so I think Keith Butler just having the pragmatic approach of just focus on the things you can control, and listen, they're going to get away with that kind of stuff from time to time.
Yeah, and he also talked about kind of reasons why they don't like to play cover zero. Pretty interesting aspect, I guess, of that overall. And then talking, what else did he say that caught my?
What did he say for the big reason of why they don't play cover zero? Just a risk factor.
Yeah, because you got to get home in that situation. Yeah. Make sure you get home. Look, Steve Spagnuolo, boy, that guy lives off cover zero, doesn't he?
Well, the Dolphins are doing the heck out of it last night. I mean, that's what. Against Lamar.
Now the thing is you hope that you have the front overall, a 4-man rush where you don't have to send numbers like that. And obviously with cover zero, you put, a lot of stress on individual play, man-on-man type situations. And if one guy gets beat, it usually ends up in the end zone, right? Type situation there. Keith just does not. He's just not a big fan of cover zero type situations there. What else did he talk about? Another leverage kind of comment there, and I thought they did a little bit better job overall when it came to defending, leverage properly and all. But you could tell that it's still something that, a few times in that game against the Bears that maybe things didn't go well there. And
well, he was referring to Mcleod, I think, about that, right? And he didn't say what play, but I'm pretty sure it was the touchdown to Mooney, where that's a scramble drill, so I think it's a little bit different. But Mcleod, the help's to the inside there, the safety's to the inside, and so Mcleod can't lose to the outside, and ultimately he did on that play.
Was that the one that Fields extended?
Yeah, to his left. Yeah, the go-ahead touchdown. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you defend that. Period. I mean, I don't see. That's an NFL quality quarterback throw right there.
But I think the point is that receiver can't break to the outside like that. The Mcleod's got to keep him inside to where the safety help is at. I believe is how Butler's arguing that.
Man, once you get into an extended play situation like that, I think that's hypercritical on if indeed that's what he was talking about. I mean, did you see too many other instances of lost leverage situations? Critical?
No, and with Mcleod in particular, I mean, the slot fade, he had correct leverage on that play, so that wasn't it. And I don't know what other big play Mcleod allowed in that one. Maybe there was one other, but I'm pretty sure it was the touchdown he was referring to. So I think it got better. And as you said, I mean, it's tough, especially when the play breaks down and there's a scramble drill and you just, everyone's kind of just fighting and trying to plaster and things like that. So I don't think it was as much of an issue against the Bears as it was against Cleveland the week before.
And I don't think he had too many answers, though, for why – just other than they've got to do a better job of adjusting at halftime, I guess, and be they've got to be, I think, and we've seen this, a couple of times, they've got to be more proactive, I think, to guessing, and he admitted it's a guessing game, of how teams are likely going to adjust at halftime to what they're seeing there. And, obviously, the Steelers weren't ready for the Wildcat. They weren't ready for more designed quarterback runs in that game, and they got a lot of that in the second half there. And on top of it, the vertical aspect, they weren't ready. And in so many words, I think Butler was kind of critical that they've just got to be better at adjusting to things at halftime. But that's been a common theme now, at least for this year, and really going back several years now. I think we've seen the Steelers attempt to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, mainly because of some adjustments or non-adjustments on the defensive side of football, right?
Yeah. Did you see the stat I had about the Bears' run success, traditional runs versus non-traditional runs?
No, fire it.
Yeah, against traditional, just standard running plays, hand the ball off to the running back, the Bears had 3.9 yards per carry and a 35.7% success rate. Against design fields runs and Wildcat, the Bears averaged 7.6 yards per carry and an 85.7% success rate, 6 to 7. So a
six of 7.
I think it was 6 or 7. I believe the numbers. I'll have to go back and check, but 85.7% is the success rate against the Steelers defense. And so you can just definitely see that line in the sand between the newness of the design field runs in the Wildcat versus traditional run plays. That's night and day.
You know, when the Steelers have some teams down at halftime, and now we've seen this a couple of times too, teams are not afraid to get away from that run. You know, the Seahawks did it. And really caught the Steelers by surprise, I think, in that beginning of the second half of that game against the Seahawks and all. So, we see this defense come out and play well, and you rewind back to that game on Monday night against the Bears. There, the first 5 possessions or so, you're thinking, man, this thing might be, a blowout for the Steelers is 23-3.
But the reason for that to me is his offense is not putting that nail in the coffin. They're
right.
14, but they can't make it 21. They can't make it where it's the late third quarter, fourth quarter, and you're up multiple scores. And so, I mean, the Seattle was down, but they were down. It was at the start of the third quarter, so they weren't in that pass mode, hurry up mode quite yet. Pittsburgh's got to get to that point where it's fourth quarter and they're still up, 14, 17 points.
Right. You want to make that opposing offense get predictable in second halves of games where you just tell you guys to get after it and don't, you can pretty much disregard the run. Well, they never get in those situations, right. So that leaves them, at least for the teams that are patient and don't scramble to get away from the run game. It allows, if they stay patient with it a lot of times, especially against this Steelers front right now, without Tyson Alualu, without Stephon Tuitt, they can have some success in those areas.
Yeah. And so when you're an offense like Pittsburgh that averages 20 points per game, it's hard to get offenses to abandon their run script because you're just not scoring enough overall to really force teams' hand to start throwing the ball 90% of the time.
But when is the last time that we remember the Steelers offense being their best defense at times, and getting this team? I mean, you probably have to go back, and I think the defense played a part in it. That game against Carolina on that Thursday night game, and maybe one against the Chiefs, I don't know, Sunday night or a Monday night game, or maybe it was.
And it was the Browns game last year, 38-7.
Okay.
That was a victory. But yeah, I point taken for sure. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Just. Overall, I think the message, my takeaway from Keith Butler was, we got to do a better job of coming out at halftime and adjusting to things, adjusting to adjustments, I guess.
Right. And I guess in that Browns game, there was a pick six to start that one, so that defense was putting points on the board in that game as well. But yeah, point taken for sure. Anything else from Keith Butler that he spoke about that's worth mentioning here?
Not that we don't have a transcript in front of us, so not off the top of my head.
Yeah, Butler did talk about kind of the secret for Hayward, others batting down passes, just said it's a feel thing. I think that just comes with experience and just guys who get a good feel for quarterbacks and offensive lineman setting and those kinds of things. They can just pick up on those subtle, nuances that kind of tell you what the pass is going to be.
I appreciated that explanation and for the quick sets and all like that. I mean, it is kind of for those of us that stay in, entranced indulged in the tape and all like that. Yeah, we get that kind of stuff, but Joe Q average fan probably that's good type of information to get from a coordinator, I think.
Yeah, and Cam Hayward among the league's best at doing those kinds of things. I mean, this guy just impacts the game. Just every single facet of it, he impacts it. Run game, pass game, effort plays, batting down passes, leadership. I mean, no one does more just in that overall game to me than Cam Hayward.
That batting down passes is an interesting topic too, because who is this team missing that makes made a strong habit of getting a hand on a football at least once a game?
Tyson
Alualu, man, that guy underrated as far as batted down or tip passes. And boy, if you tip a pass, sometimes if you can't pull off what Cameron Hayward did, which I still don't know how I caught that football or trapped it or whatever, turnovers a lot of times come off of tip balls, right? Balls up in the air, and it just doesn't seem. We saw Devin Bush get his hand on one on a deep seam one several weeks ago there. Not getting enough hands on the football at the line of scrimmage. Now there was I think one or two that have been batted up in the air that they haven't come down with, and that's shame on them for not doing that. But some of these younger guys in the middle, guys like Isaiah Buggs, guys like Chris Wormley, guys like Henry Mondeau, man, they can really impact the game if they start learning that aspect of timing and getting the hands up and getting hands on footballs.
Agreed, but that's going to come with time and experience and just learning the game, just being around the game. I think it's not something that comes early in a lot of careers for these guys. All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about from what the players said or what coaches said in these last couple of days? I don't think there's anything too earth-shattering. Ben, speaking on Wednesday, said he hurt a shoulder a couple weeks ago. That's not a new injury, although it's new on the injury report, but that was probably the extent of the interesting things Ben had to say.
Yeah, I don't like the way he worded it, though. You're begging for the NFL to get your business there, right?
The NFL has entered the chat, yeah, for sure.
Talking about, well, that happened back against the Raiders or the Bengals. We just don't tell you guys everything. Oh man, save that, Ben. We'll have to see what comes out of that. So, let's see, what else did Zapruder filmed the supposed tip pass. I don't think it's conclusive enough. Yeah,
you're saying, does the call stand here? How does this work?
I mean, look, yeah, I've zoomed that and slowed it down as best as I could. I think your initial reaction is, and for those that are maybe missed a show or whatnot, or missed my Twitter feed or whatnot, all about that deep pass to James Washington the other night against the Bears, whether or not that defensive lineman hit his hand or not. Ben says his hand was hit on that. Looking at it as best as I can look at it, it does not look like it was hit. However, that ball does seem to a little bit flutter leaving out of his hand there. So I cannot, my ruling is the call on the field or Ben's call stands, because unless I see another angle, I cannot definitively say that, and maybe not so much his hand hit, but maybe the defensive lineman nicking that ball just a little bit, once it's released. I cannot definitively say that did not happen based on the angles that I have. Your thoughts on it from what you've seen?
It's a heck of an answer there. It's very, very politician-y.
Well, I get what you're saying. There is a part of me that wants to call BS here, all right? Mm-hmm. But in all fairness, and looking at it as many times as I've looked at it, I would be doing a disservice to our listeners by just flat out calling BS here, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm mixed as well, because I don't see any contact there, but maybe on the very end of that follow through, because like you said, you can see that ball comes out fine, that first frame, and then you kind of see it turn, and you wonder, okay, did he get his hand on the ball or on the follow through at the very, very end there? But it's hard to tell for sure, and when you watch it, you don't see any contact between the defender's hand hitting Ben's hand, so that's what makes it tough to judge.
Right. I wish maybe another angle of that will surface at some point. I don't know, but I've done my part, and I tried to present it at least on Twitter as here it is, because a lot of people are asking about it, or a good amount of people are asking about it, but I cannot definitively say that Ben is telling a lie there.
I just hope he's telling the truth, because if he's not, then that's it's like the girl I'm talking to who keeps saying she's falling asleep. Oh, she just must be really tired. That must be the reason.
Oh, does that happen a lot?
To me, it must be narcoleptic or something. I don't know. I'm going to tell myself not just. I'm kidding.
Maybe we can work on that. Do they? Have you tried any apps or anything?
Oh, God. That's yes, and
I would not even know how to even function in that world these days.
No disrespect, I'm not going to come to you with advice on the apps.
I got pretty good experience with dealing with women overall. I've been married to one for a long time, so.
And burning down trailers and whatever else you've done in your walks of life, I might do the opposite of.
Okay. So what app do you prefer to use?
I'm not talking about this with you. I promise. No way. Not happening. Let's move on here to our good friend Dave Birkett. Let's do that instead here, and we'll talk about the Steelers, Lions, and Dave and I will preview it here in a moment. But let's first talk to Dave Birkett, who covers the Detroit Lions for the Detroit Free Press. We'll talk to him, a good conversation, about 25 minutes to discuss the highs and unfortunately several lows about this Lions 0-8 season. We'll get his predictions for this game as well and talk about the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame voter, and he'll get his input on Heinz Ward, Antonio Brown, and others. So we'll take a break here and come back with Dave, and Alex.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and as promised, we have a beat writer on who covers the Steelers' opposition this week, and obviously game Sunday at Heinz Field against the 0-8 Detroit Lions. So we are pleased to have back on the show once again Dave Birkett. Dave covers the Lions for the Detroit Free Press. He's also a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter as well, too. A lot of people might not realize that. So he's previously covered the Lions for the Oakland Press and AnnArbor.com. And as mentioned, he covers them now for the Detroit Free Press. Dave, welcome to the Terrible Podcast, or welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Happy Friday.
Yeah, appreciate it. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, Dave. Listen, obviously, kind of the one of the things when you look at this game on Sunday between the Steelers and the Lions, the easy thing to look at is the Lions' record at 0-8, the lone winless team in the NFL right now. But you've obviously covered this team a long time. You've seen bad starts to the season. You've seen the head coaching changes over the years and all. From a 30,000-foot perspective, someone who really if they don't follow the Lions week in and week out, how would you best describe this 0-8 start for the Lions, I guess, and why is this team 0-8 in a league that's kind of full of parity? We saw what happened last Sunday in the NFL. We saw what happened even Thursday night, the Miami Dolphins upsetting the Baltimore Ravens. So how would you best describe this 0-8 team?
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought they'd be 0-8, but I don't think it's surprising at all that they've struggled the way they have in some of these games, and specifically on offense. I mean, they are an offensively challenged team right now. Don't have much in the receiving core. They just claimed Josh Reynolds, and he may end up playing this week for them. Jared Goff is not having a great year. So young team, first year of the rebuild, something that, I think people around here were realistic about what to expect out of this team this year. So no one is up in arms, even though, like I said, I don't think anyone would have guessed they'd be 0-8 at this point in the season.
When you look at Dan Campbell, is he kind of what you thought he would be, going back to, obviously, the initial press conference with him and knowing his background, in the NFL and all like that, has he kind of been what you have expected him to be throughout this process?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know, a lot of people out there after the initial press conference, he became a character to a lot of people, but I can tell you from the time I spent with him, from talking to people inside the building who've been around him, I mean, he is, that's who he is. What you see is the real Dan Campbell. He doesn't pull any punches. He's passionate. He, that resonates with a lot of fans here and probably in Pittsburgh too, right? Somebody that just came up, fighting for what he got and clawed his way to the top of the NFL profession. And so even though they've had some struggles, and certainly he hasn't been perfect in the things that he's done. I think players appreciate him and have responded to him and believe that he is the right man for this job.
Dave, as you mentioned, this offense has struggled mightily under 20 points their past 7 games. What's the number one reason why this offense has struggled so much? Is there a common theme in those 7 games of why this offense is just struggling to put points on the board?
No, it's the passing game. I mean, look, the Lions have there's been some injuries, right? Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, their two best offensive linemen, have been out most of the year. Decker should be back this week, play his first game back at left tackle. So that hasn't helped. But, they've been able to run the ball okay. They just haven't been able to sustain it because they've been down too big in games sometimes. And,
right.
and a lot of that is because they generate no big plays. I mean, they have no receivers that are recognizable to the common fan out there. And it's not just about name. It's just, they signed two free agents this offseason, Tyro Williams and Rashad Perryman. Perryman got cut in training camp. Williams suffered a concussion in the first game, hasn't played since. The Lions cut him off injured reserve. They don't have any big time playmakers, and TJ Hawkinson is a really good tight end, but defenses focus on him and they take him out of games, and the Lions have to go piece by piece by piece. And that's a tough way to live in the NFL on offense.
Sure.
And look, Jared Goff is a part of that too. He last in the NFL in metrics like, yards per attempt and intended air yards per throw and some of those things. And so the Lions they've been living on the check down and throwing short. And again, it's tough to go about 4 quarters of business offensively in the NFL when that's the only way you can move the football.
When the Lions are able to run the football, they got a couple of good backs, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. I know Swift, a super accomplished receiver, more receptions than any other running back in football with 47. Just define him as a player overall, and what kind of style is he as a runner? I think people know him as a receiver, but what kind of runner is he? Is he more elusive? Is he just kind of break down his game?
It's weird. He hasn't had a lot of success running this year. I think it's like 3.2 yards per carry. And some of that goes back to just the way that defenses have been able to play the Lions because they have no deep threats, So he is an elusive back. And I think that's part of why he's a matchup problem in the pass game. But because teams have played so heavily, such heavy run boxes, and bringing those safeties up, you don't have to keep them too deep. It's really limited Swift's production, and so I don't think we've seen much of what Swift can do. You will see it in glimpses where you'll be like, oh wow, where's that? That's the guy that the Lions thought they were getting when they took him in the second round last year. But you'll see him a lot this week because Jamal Williams is hurt. Those two have split the workload really through the first 7 games. But Williams is not expected to play Sunday, so DeAndre Swift should get more and more carries.
How would you evaluate Penei Sewell? He's a guy that was right tackle, then moved to left tackle. They've kind of flip-flopped him. That might be difficult for him. How would you evaluate his performance? And I assume he'll see TJ Watt this week being back on that right side.
Yeah, he's a good player. Rookie, obviously 21 years old, didn't play last year, just for some context. So, you would expect him to have some rookie, bumps, and he certainly has. But the talent is obvious. I mean, he's a really good athlete for being, 6'5", 340 pounds, whatever he is. I think he's a future left tackle in the NFL. The Lions just happen to have a pretty good one there, and Taylor Decker, and are in no rush to move him off the position. Sewell played right tackle back when the Lions and Steelers played in the preseason, so it's not like it's completely new to him, but he hasn't practiced at the position since training camp because Taylor Decker got hurt at the very end of camp there. So, the Lions will give him some help on the edge there against TJ Watt. Expect to get a lot of chip help because they can't have Watt disrupting this game and putting them in long down and distance situations that they can't get out of.
With T.J. Hawkinson, obviously a long tight end university, if you will, at Iowa, right? All those good tight ends seem to come out there. Thinking back to the pre-draft process, I think his ability as a pass catcher and route runner was there. I don't remember him being as efficient as a blocker, but he certainly seems to have progressed in that area from the All-22 that we've watched on that. How important, you mentioned about the help that they obviously will give Sewell over there at right tackle and T.J. Watt, and I'm sure T.J. will, the other T.J. Hawkinson will be in charge of poking Watt in the ribs a couple of times there, but how much will that limit how they can use him maybe offensively because of how they want to potentially use him as help to Sewell over there at right tackle?
No, it's a fair point. And, it might not always be Hawkinson who does it for that reason, right? Brock Wright, they've got an undrafted rookie tight end who, has played a little bit more each of the last couple of weeks. And I think you see him in that role, or maybe it's one of the running backs coming out of the backfield that's doing it because they do need to give him help. But, because Hockenson is so key to this passing game, and really, you can't have him, spend that extra second blocking all the time, and you're just going to miss so much with him downfield that the Lions need to do something to free him up. Look, Hockenson is, I don't think he's a great blocker, but he's a willing blocker,
right.
And that's part of the battle, obviously, in the NFL. Really where he excels is sort of that intermediate passing game. And, first couple of weeks he had 8 catches, and then everyone started double teaming him, and he had a pretty good game last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, before the bye. But the Lions need more out of him too, right? When he is double teamed, he wants to be one of the best tight ends in the NFL, considers himself to be that. Well, when he has some of those double teams, he still has to win those because the Lions, they just don't have a whole lot else on offense.
Looking at the defensive side of football, an old friend, Nick Williams. Boy, that guy, the Steelers, when they drafted him, they said an athletic guy, and it looked like because of his classic build coming out of the small school of Sanford that maybe this guy, if they gave him a little bit of time, could develop, because of the smaller competition he was going against and just having to get acclimated to the NFL level. I've definitely kept track with him over the years, and he's turned into quite the player over there. Is he probably one of the better kept secrets when it comes to that front four in Detroit? And how would you kind of give a broad brush stroke of that front four heading into this game?
Well, it's probably the strength of the Lions. I mean, that defensive front, they do play 3/4, and those outside linebackers line up as defensive ends too. So really, the interior linemen plus those edge rushers, that's the strength of the team. But, when you're 0-8 and you're, bottom third of the NFL in just about every important category, I don't know that there's any real strengths. And that goes for the defensive line too. I mean, they struggled badly against the Philadelphia Eagles, stopping the run a couple weeks ago. Inside the red zone, they have not been great at stopping the run this year. They've got a couple young rookies who I think are going to be good players, and to me are really probably some of their better linemen right now, Aleem McNeil and Levi Onwuzurike. And then on the edge, they're missing their best defensive player, Romeo Okwara, who tore his Achilles early in the season. His brother Julian has played pretty well of late, but sort of the same thing that we talk about in offense, where they don't have a lot of elite blue chip playmakers, and that's what's held this defense back.
Ben Roethlisberger, much like Jared Goff, not one that pushes the football down the field quite regularly. Especially, you hit on some metrics that I follow really closely. The intended air yards, the completed air yards. Roethlisberger, like Jared Goff, struggles to connect on the deep balls past 20 yards down the line of scrimmage. But other teams have had some success against the Lions in that area. So, are you expecting? What is the best way for Ben to attack this defense vertically more than 20 yards down the field? Normally it's been cover one with Ben. He sees that man coverage. He sees that deep middle of the field safety. Ben throws it outside the numbers deep and hopes that his guy can come down with it. Is that what we're going to expect to see? And how have the Lions been kind of in defending kind of those cover one man situations?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect much of that. I mean, the Lions have been a too high safety team. That's what they like to do. And Aaron Glenn said yesterday that surprisingly, one of their too high safety packages has been their best run defensive package too. And so I wouldn't expect them to vary too much from that this week. Look, a lot of their secondary has had incredible issues, and they're very young there. Jeff Okudah got hurt week one. He tore his Achilles. He was their first round pick last year. They replaced him with a rookie who got hurt, and then they replaced him with another rookie. So they're starting 2 rookies out of their 3 cornerbacks right now. And a lot of the issues that they've had have been miscommunication issues, I think, more than anything. So if they can simplify coverage, and I don't know for sure that they're going to do that, but just in hearing Aaron Glenn talk yesterday about how that they want to be this too high safety team, and that's actually been the best run defense. And I would expect them to play primarily out of that look and force Ben to nickel and dime it downfield, because really that's who he is right now. And maybe it's kind of funny, right? A lot of this staff comes from New Orleans, where Drew Brees was sort of the same way the last year or two, and now they've got Jared Goff, who really is the same way, and now going against Ben. So I think it's something that they're very familiar with and should be comfortable playing against.
Yeah, well, Ben's going to say, "Don't mind if I do," with the underneath throw, so he'll take that a lot against the Lions. You touched on it, Dave, but
and
just
everyone will complain on both sides. Come on, throw the ball downfield.
Yeah, middle of the field. Got to throw it in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Got to throw it down the field. Look, I mean, explosive plays are a big part of the NFL, and that's the Steelers are struggling in that aspect. It seems when they get them, it's throw short, run long. And I know the Lions, their screen game has been strong. We saw against the Rams, got that screen against the all-out blitz and took it to the house. But it's hard for and this is just me interjecting, not a question or anything, but it's hard to win in the NFL if you have to go 13 plays down the field and not having an explosive play. I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, you're okay. Dave, you touched on it with this defense overall. How would you define this defense as one with talent that just has a lot of youth and needs time and patience, or do they need to be totally rebuilt where just they need to have an infusion of talent and new faces be brought along with this group?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a question of, how much talent because it is so young.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think they have some foundational pieces there. I just, to me in the NFL, you have to have some really elite players too, right? You need a TJ Watt coming off the edge. Right. You need a Minka Fitzpatrick in the back end, right? And the Lions just don't have that caliber player on their defense right now. And again, they thought or they were hoping that Romeo Okwara could be one of those. He tore his Achilles. He was the closest one they had to that at least. And now what they're left with is a bunch of young guys and they're not bad by any means. And Aleem McNeil's a third-round pick who's been a pretty good nose tackle for them this year. And Derek Barnes is a young linebacker who he's playing about half the snaps. And you can, again, you can see some of these flashes where you're like, all right, that guy's going to be a pretty good player. But I just don't know how big a difference makers are going to be. So I like the talent that they have, but they need more high-end players on that side of the ball.
Yeah, that's the thing that struck me. This is a very young defense. Only two guys, I think, on defense are over 30, and that's Brockers and Nick Williams. Who are the leaders of this group, especially with the linebackers in the secondary? Who are some of the mentors that are trying to bring these young guys along?
Yeah, well, it's Brockers and Williams up front, and Alex Anzalone is the captain at middle linebacker. I mean, he's doing something. Mentioned Derek Barnes. Basically how the Lions operate is Anzalone plays every snap, and when Barnes is out there, Barnes is essentially the middle linebacker, and Alex goes to the weak side, and Jalen Reeves-Maben, when he's out there, he plays weak side, and Anzalone plays in the middle. And, so Anzalone has sort of been bringing Derek Barnes, the rookie, along and working with him, having him call plays along with him. The Lions have a little virtual film room where they can do everything sort of watching on a big screen. And so those two go in there and work on that. So Anzalone is certainly a leader of that. And, Tracy Walker is their best defensive back right now. He's playing pretty well at safety. So those are sort of the guys, I guess, that I would highlight on that side of the ball.
My last question for you, then I'll let Dave close things out. Have fans soured on Dan Campbell? From my outside perspective, it feels like he's having the best 0-8 start ever in terms of keeping the locker room together. And usually you have the pitchforks out already. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm sure some people are obviously disappointed being 0-8, but it seems like Campbell's still holding things together. Is that a fair assessment?
No, it is. And it's funny because I actually, we're a couple of weeks ago, I asked Aaron Glenn, right? They're 0, I don't know what they were, 7 at the time or something. And it was kind of like, are you guys overachieving in some way? Not record-wise, but defensively.
Because they've had some heartbreaking losses.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny sometimes. So I mean, look, there are some people here that they just want wins and they don't want the crying after a game that Dan did, or the talking about biting kneecaps, or some people fear it's an act or it's going to wear thin. As I said, I think he's a very genuine person, and that means a lot in an NFL locker room. So I do think people have bought in, and I don't think anyone has wavered in the organization that is, on him being the right man for the job. So yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. He's he's taking some good calculated risks. If you step back and look at the roster, the Lions have one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. Compound that with some injuries at some key spots and with some key players, and that's why you get 0-8.
We're wrapping up. Dave Birkett here with the Detroit Free Press, Hall of Fame voter on top of that as well, too. Dave, X factors on both sides of the football for the Lions heading into this game.
Well, I mean, look, we talked about Sewell against Watt earlier, but to me that really is a big X factor, because the Lions, they're not going to go anywhere if TJ and the rest of that defense is pressuring Jared Goff. And so Sewell, first career start at right tackle, he has to keep TJ Watt at bay. And he's done, my little sack charting, I think I have Sewell giving up 6 sacks this year. 4 of those came in 2 games. He's been pretty good overall, but If he can do that, and if he can do that with limited help, that's a good thing for the Lions on offense. And then defensively, look, this is going to sound funny because obviously everything runs through Najee Harris, but I think the Lions have to keep Pat Freiermuth in check, especially in the red zone, because, they've been so bad red zone defensively this year. They've given up touchdowns on 20 of 24 possessions opponents have gotten the red zone. And I do think the Lions will commit plenty of resources to stopping Najee, and it's other guys like Freiermuth that they can't let beat them if he's out there.
Fair enough, Dave. You're a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, and we obviously have had several beat writers on over the years, and a few Pro Football Hall of Fame voters. But wanted to feel free not to answer or dance around however you want. It's probably a delicate question there. But Hines Ward, Alex and I are we're not popular because of our belief that Hines Ward might not ever get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Good, right? And wanted to get your thoughts on that. What you see Hines Ward's chances of getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Obviously not these next 2 years. It doesn't seem likely, but beyond that. And then also, where do you weigh in on a guy like James Harrison and his Hall of Fame chances?
Yeah, frankly, I haven't looked at Harrison in comparison to some of the other pass rushers. I probably don't have a good answer for you there, though. I do remember him as being, obviously a really good player for most of his career. So, he would certainly be somebody that I would consider. I just don't know how the numbers stack up, or the All-Pro awards, those sort of, measures, I guess, how he stacks up against the other defensive linemen or pass rushers that have played. I put Hines Ward in my final 25. We had to submit our list of our 25 semifinalists that gets whittled down to 15 last week, and I did have Hines Ward in my 25. He's a borderline guy. I think the numbers that receivers now are putting up and really offenses are putting up, it might make it tough for him because the further we get away from Heinz's playing career, certainly I can appreciate him for, some of the other things that he did on the field, right? The blocking and being part of Super Bowl winners and all that. Just those numbers to voters, I think they tend to take on more meaning the further away from your career you get, just because there are fewer people that saw him play in the prime of his career. So it might be tough for Hines to do it, but I think he's certainly worthy of being in the room and being talked about it at the very least, just to have that discussion on where he fits into the grand scheme of receivers that have played this game.
Is Antonio Brown a lock to get in the first 5 years when he's eligible?
Ooh, that's a good one too. For me, the way I sort of view a Hall of Fame guy, right, is if you are the best player at your position for, some extended period of time, right? Not 1 year, it doesn't have to be 10 years, but if you are not the best, but in that conversation for being among the best, right? One of the best, let's say 3 players at your position. And Antonio Brown was a really good player for a few years there. What did he have? 4 first-team All-Pro nominations or something. So that's pretty significant. And I know maybe the last couple of years haven't gone the way that people would expect, and there's some off-field things that may cloud people's judgment of him. But I think he's going to have a pretty good case when it comes time for him to be in the Hall of Fame discussion.
All right, Dave. Sunday at Heinz Field, Lions and Steelers. Where do you fall in on this one? Lions going to pull the upset here. How about a final score prediction if you have one for us?
Yeah, look, I think it's a game the Lions can win. The Steelers, they're offensively challenged at times too, and those are the types of teams that the Lions can beat. The Lions obviously coming off a bye, pretty well rested. The Steelers on a short week and some pretty big games for Pittsburgh coming up. So I do think this is going to be a close game, but guys, I've just seen, the Lions too close here of late to pick them. Just to be frank, they have too many holes on both sides of the ball and not enough big-time playmakers. So, if I'm giving a score, I'll probably say, Steelers 20, Lions 17, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I do think it's a close game, and, frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if, we come down to the final 2 minutes and whoever's got the ball at the end wins this one.
All right, fair enough. Dave, look, so glad to have you on for a third time, obviously, every 4 years because of the way this thing sets up. I've followed you for years. You do a great job covering for the Detroit Free Press. You're a great follow on Twitter at Dave Birkett as well, too. Dave, once again, from Alex and myself, thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast.
You got it, guys. We'll talk to you again.
And again, our thanks to Dave Birkett. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Dave Birkett. And if you guys, as always, and we definitely appreciate it every single week, just let him know on Twitter that you listen to him, that you appreciate his time, because certainly these guys are busy. The life of a beat writer is one that does not stop this time of year. And so we appreciate Dave for his insight as always.
Absolutely. And boy, you get these Hall of Fame guys on. I wanted to make sure we only have him on obviously once every 4 years, and we're obviously thankful for that. And some of these guys, you don't know how they're going to, because a lot of them like to keep their votes and their conversations that happen inside that room, to themselves, and all. So I thought he was pretty candid talking about Hines Ward, and he was honest about, not knowing really what he probably shouldn't know yet about James Harrison, but I'm sure he'll educate himself come time if there is talk about James Harrison. And Antonio Brown, it's good to get his thoughts on him as well, too. So just all around a good guy that's been on beats for a long time. And I thought he did a good job previewing the Lions. And that's a tough job. It's got to be a tough job on an 0-8 team, right?
Right, for sure. Yeah, appreciate how candid he was about the Hall of Fame, about saying he had Heinz Ward in his semifinalists. So that's a little nugget of information worth knowing there. So, all right, Dave, let's do our own preview of this game. Pittsburgh coming in 5-3, as we mentioned, top of the show, a chance to take the lead in the AFC North against the 0-8 Detroit Lions. But as last night showed, as Week 9 showed, with the upsets, with Pittsburgh barely getting a victory against Chicago, with Detroit playing several close games this season, 2 heartbreaking losses, long field goals, as time expired, you don't want to overlook and don't want to assume anything against any team, even the 0-8 Detroit Lions.
You mean there's no such thing as a trap game?
No such thing as a trap game, and there is a such thing as upsets, though, that happen every single week. And this one, it certainly could happen.
All right, where would you like to start on this? I guess we'll start on the offensive side of football, and I think we asked Dave about X-factor type situations, and him naming Penei Sewell against T.J. Watt. I mean, I think that's absolutely right and huge in this one. I mean, you have a kid in Sewell that's still trying to gain his footing, and if indeed Decker comes back and starts at that left tackle spot for Penei to have to shift over. And we've seen how teams try to help those tackles out and how that goes so far. So that is a big point in this game. And obviously any week that T.J. Watt's on that field and healthy, the opposing tackle that he's going up against has a very demanding job. That's going to be a big aspect of this game. And we saw what Melvin Ingram did to that kid back in preseason. Right now, obviously Melvin Ingram's not around. I'm trying to remember how much Watt faced.
Watt didn't play in that game because of the holding.
Okay, there you go. So that's why we remember mostly Melvin Ingram in that game then. So I'm sure Watt's already got some tape on that kid already. So I think it starts there. That Lions offensive line not great as a whole. Now Jared Goff. Obviously we've talked quite a bit about him over the years since being drafted in the first round. They just don't have any talent over there outside of Hawkinson to be able to throw the football. The running back in Swift and Hawkinson are obviously their 2 top targets there. They do a great job, I think, in the screen game overall, something that at times we've seen has given the Steelers defense fits before. We've seen athletic tight ends in Waller and all like that. I don't consider Hawkinson to be Darren Waller or Kelsey or that type of guy. He's obviously a threat and needs to be respected. I don't know if you go about just saying we want to bracket this guy, most of the game just to take him away. I'm not convinced that's the way to go. But this offense lacks weapons overall at the receiver department, I think. And then on top of it, you look at Jared Goff and just a history. much like Ben Roethlisberger now, he is a quarterback that struggles to push the football down the field. Alex, he is 6 of 24 this year on passes of air yards of 20 or more yards down the field. I mean, that's 25%. That's Ben Roethlisberger category right there. You look at his completed air yards, intended air yards, not great, Bob. And that's extremely tough when it comes to an offense. Not only do you have a quarterback that struggles to push the football down the field, but you have a quarterback that lacks overall weapons to do that with. And, that's really hindering this offense from what I can tell.
Yeah, I think in this game you're not going to blitz a lot because of the threat of the screen game. Even on 3rd and long, they'll throw screens just to try to get into more manageable situations or get a guy in space. Usually that's Hawkinson or Swift, as you said. But I think you made a good point with Dave Birkett about, how do you balance needing to chip and slow down a guy like T.J. Watt, but also not wanting to neutralize T.J. Hawkinson. You think about what the Broncos did with Noah Fant. They really did a good job of chipping and trying to slow down T.J. Watt in that game, but that really took away Fant as an option in the pass game. The Lions don't have that kind of luxury. They need Hawkinson to be an asset in the pass game. He's their leading receiver on the season. So do you find other ways with running backs, other tight ends, as Dave mentioned, the rookie they have there, how they try to balance that's going to be, I think, really interesting in this game.
Yeah, and, without having the kind of thunder aspect to their running back game, that's going to put a lot more pressure on a guy like Swift. Can their offense be patient with the run? One thing, and Josh pointed this out, I think Josh Carney did in the offensive report there, for them not having a running game, they sure do effectively use play action, don't they?
Yeah, well, that goes back to the idea of you don't have to have a good run game to have a good play action component to your offense.
Right, and I'd like to see the Steelers use a little bit more, even more play action than they're using, especially under center stuff there. So I think, what do they do offensively? They do a lot of the standard stuff. You see them run some RPO stuff. You see them run a counter running game. I think you pointed out that they tend to use the fullback maybe at times a little bit more as part of a running game.
But just as a pure blocker, not as a receiver or anything like that.
Right, just as a pure blocker there on top of it. So, they're going to have to try and dink and dunk down the field and then occasionally hit on a deep shot. It's almost like probably watching their offense this week will be kind of like watching the Steelers offense, except for the fact that the Steelers, as of late, have had a lot more success, at least when successful run rates play into this and running the football. If they're not able to run the football successfully, it really, really stresses their offense because they don't have a Deontay Johnson, kind of player there that can help flip the field in a heartbeat over there. And I'd watch out for the screen game. And if I'm the Steelers, I just say, look, you're not going to run on us. We're going to make Goff throw the football to the back out of the backfield or T.J. Hawkinson, 20 times a game in order to beat us. And plain and simple.
Yeah, because the receivers are really limited threats, and you don't want to assume or take anything for granted. But it's probably
Could you name their top 3 receivers before looking at their tape?
Honestly, no. But to the names are Khalif Raymond and St. Brown, who I did like coming out of USC. And as Birkett said, maybe they play Josh Reynolds, who they just claimed off of waivers. Just guys, they're just plucking guys and just trying to play them. It is the most. It is probably the weakest wide receiver core in football right now.
What's the deal with Geronimo Allison? Is he even dressing for games?
Oh, wow, there's a name. Came out of Syracuse. I remember liking him. I don't know if he's done much for him, but Geronimo Allison. Has he played a whole lot for them this year?
I don't think so. That's why.
Yeah, week 7, he's played a couple of snaps. He started against the Rams, but does not have a catch this season.
All right, isn't he a guy that can kind of get vertical on you?
He's a big guy. He's listed 6'3", 200 pounds. I think he was kind of a jump ball guy coming out of Syracuse.
All right, so maybe that's the name to that they might try to him and Josh Reynolds being new. You kind of guess that Josh Reynolds might be a little bit still too new to get involved heavily in that offense there. But once again, they like the Steelers, they struggle to produce explosive plays, and you can't give them anything easy. I would expect them to try to exploit some sort of matchups with the running backs and or T.J. Hawkinson on a linebacker or a safety or something like that. So I think you got to be real cognizant of that going into this into this game, and just don't let Goff unleash one. Now there's going to be some trickeration, I'm sure, in this one, just the way it was against the Rams. It's weird. They gave the Rams all they wanted. They pulled all the tricks out of the bag and made that game competitive against the Rams. Then turn around against the Eagles and did just the opposite, right?
Right. Yeah, I got boat race, 44-6 in that one. But I will say, watch Hawkinson down the seam. I mean, I know that the Lions do not successfully throw the ball downfield a lot, but they run a decent amount of four verts and just seam routes and everybody running downfield and hoping to get a 1-0 matchup. So watch out for big T.J. Hawkinson down probably the left seam.
Goff gets himself in trouble, I think, with the processing part of it as well, too. It seems like he's gotten to the point, and with this offense, and I think we've seen it in the past too when he was with the Rams. I don't think he processes as quickly. And I think that causes him to hold that ball a little bit extra. And when he does, I think that's when it gets him in trouble there.
Right. And he lacks the arm talent to make up for being a tick slow with the processing.
Right. And just emotion at all. The ball, I think they're trying to get him to be a more rhythmic passer, if you will. But I don't think that's working very well.
Right. I don't think many things are working very well for Detroit right now, unfortunately. So any other final thoughts there with the Lions offense?
Just watch the screen game, man. And once again, it's just something else that really, really sticks out with them. That Swift can hurt you in a heartbeat. I think so. You're gonna need a good game by Devin Bush and kind of spying that kind of guy and being able to run with him. I don't think they're afraid to go empty at times in certain situations. On top of it, there, so be wary of the mismatch there. Closing up on offense here. I mean, do you try to bracket a guy like Hawkinson in this game and leave yourself susceptible to maybe a one-on-one matchup on the outside and beg for Goff to go that way? Or do you just kind of play Hawkinson? I mean, this isn't Darren Waller, right?
No, he's a tier down from the top tier guys, but I think he's in that tier 2 just behind the Wallers and the Kelceys and, when healthy, the Kittles of the world. I think he's a tier 2 tight end in football.
Okay. But, I mean, how do you defend?
Yeah, I don't know if you pay the attention that you paid, Darren Waller, but I think a lot of times his team's still spinning Minka down to rob stuff over the middle. And so I think naturally that might just create some more brackets where the corner or linebacker is going to play outside leverage and Minka's going to spin down and take away the middle of the field. So maybe not in that sense you're like literally bracketing him, but you're just kind of spinning Minka down and playing the sticks and those kinds of things and forcing Goff to take and try to win those one-on-one matchups to the outside against some receivers who are not, for lack of a better word, very good right now.
Now, I like the way they use motion and they'll mix things up and have some handoffs going, going across the grade and stuff like that. What's your biggest fear about this offense? To me, it's any of that quick stuff, maybe outside the tackles
it's the screen
runs too.
It's getting Swift in space and an option route, a Texas route, and a linebacker, a screen game that breaks the tackle, gets the guy out in space because they have a decently athletic line with Decker and Sewell can run. Obviously, he's a really special athlete for being how big he is. So just any of those short gains that go long. So I'm with you.
Do you try to do some sort of more creative? I mean, you don't want Goff to take 15 hits in this game here, but I mean, he's got some level of, he's still young, some level of mobility. Do you try to build off of maybe a few, maybe not so much designed runs because he's not going to run away from people maybe like a Fields does, but do you try to get him on the move more maybe in this game?
I mean, you could run a couple of boots with him. Maybe I didn't see a ton of that on tape. I think you just do more traditional pocket passer type stuff. Because, I mean, you try to get out in space and you're getting Watt, maybe out in space, getting off the block easier. I don't know if that's going to be a component of what the Lions want to do.
Okay. So maybe some read option type, stuff. They need to up they're in a situation. You see some RPOs on tape with them, I think. But I think they would be better served to going back the way the Steelers did about 3-4 games ago and go just heavy RPOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're not heavy about it. They'll do a little bit. Every team does a little bit, but they're not. Pittsburgh's a lot heavier, for example, than Detroit is with RPOs.
I think when you have a quarterback like that and you have a capable tight end and you can you got, as you mentioned, an athletic line that maybe you can get those tackles out in space on some stuff. I'm not so sure. I don't try to dedicate heavy RPOs, especially in this game against the Steelers, because the last thing they want to do is try to get away from. They want to control the football, obviously, and then they want to get in a situation where they don't make many mistakes with their quarterback there. So I think they're going to try to run the football heavy there, and I think they would be best advised to mix in heavy RPOs early. Some of that wide receiver screens on the outside, quick. Maybe a guy like Reynolds, maybe that's the way you get him worked into this thing to get people out in numbers type situations.
Right. That makes sense. So flipping over to the Lions defense, again, another unit that struggled here in a lot of different ways. I think you're going to see for Pittsburgh a lot of the receiver run game, which you saw had success against Chicago. The Eagles had a ton of success off of it last week. Some of the jet plays, some of the toss stuff, reverse type stuff. I think that's going to be a ticket. I think you could win the edges in this game against Detroit and get out in space.
Man, it'd be nice. This team can be ran on, right?
Yeah, I mean, their run defense is middling from some of the numbers, but you watch some of the tape. I mean, and again, some of the run numbers are because teams just don't throw the ball against Detroit because they get big leads. They just kind of grind out the clock in the second half. But I think this group is not even as good as the numbers indicate, which puts them about middle of the pack.
I mean, it feels like this should be a bounce back game for the Steelers offensive line in the explosion off the ball aspect, and be able to push some of these guys back off, because they're and on the flip side, I mean, who their pass rushers kind of scares the bejesus out of you,
None of them. I mean, they have 14 sacks this season. Only one guy with more than 2 sacks this year. That's Charles Harris, who doesn't have a sack in his last 3 games. They're blitzing a decent amount to try to compensate. They'll do some linebacker fire blitzes, some field blitzes from the nickel and the safety. But there is no individual guy who worries you a whole lot.
That Anzalone can get around on a field, though, can he?
Yeah, I liked him coming out of Florida. His health was the issue with him, just a question about durability and stuff like that. But he's played well, and we both like Derek Barnes coming out of Purdue, and Pittsburgh showed interest in him, had Jerry O at his pro day. So, he's playing about half the snaps, rotating in, as Dave Birkett said. But, I mean, there's some talent here, just a really young defense overall, just needing snaps, needing experience.
Dave obviously saying that they expect a lot of cover 2, or 2 deep type situations. In this, that begs to get run on too. I guess they're so kind of concerned because of that secondary, not wanting to give up the big play that way. Just thinking, if we tackle the catch and stop the run up front there and make teams go 12, 13 plays, that maybe they'll stall themselves out a penalty or whatnot, those kind of things like that. So I think that begs for them to kind of be run on here. I mean, I'd run a ton of counter, run a ton of power. We haven't seen a lot of power this year, and you're probably not going to see it with Trey Turner going right to left. But why not more of Kevin Dotson going left to right?
Yeah, well, Kendra Green has to execute a back block. He can't do it. So, I mean, it's been tougher to do that kind of stuff because they've gotten blown up so much. I will say, I think Detroit does play a lot of too high, a lot of cover too, but they still are giving up the big play at a historic rate. They're allowing 9.3 yards per attempt this season. That's the most since 1962 of any defense. Now, that number may come down the rest of the season. We'll see where it lands. But, I mean, they're giving up big plays and chunk plays at a really high rate.
But is that more catch and run type stuff, or is it hole shots or cover 2 beaters?
Yeah, I feel like it's a mix. I don't know if it's one particular thing. And it's not even necessarily that they're giving up a bunch of 40-yard plays. It's just consistently getting 10, 15, 20-yard chunks against his pass defense is really what's hurting them.
Well, 20-yard plays, the Steelers would be wise to start hitting more of those moving forward here, not enough. And if you can't hit them, 5, 6, 7 explosive plays against the Lions defense, who can you hit them against, right?
Right, yeah, right. And the schedule gets a lot tougher, obviously, after this game concludes. But, yeah, I think it's a zone defense overall, so a lot of cover 2. Again, to watch the field side blitzes from the safety or from the nickel corner. They play some big safeties that are kind of more hybrid type of guys overall, and some decently athletic linebackers with Mabin and Barnes and Anzalone. So those guys can run a bit, but again, it's just not a defense that has played very well this season.
I don't know if this is more calling a shot or more hopeful than anything, but let's assume Anthony Miller gets elevated, right?
Yeah.
You know, some of his biggest games has been against the Lions.
Has it? I mean, obviously I knew he played with the Bears, but I didn't know what his production was.
I mean, you go back to the Thanksgiving game a couple of years ago between the Bears and the Lions. He killed them.
But I mean, does it matter because it's such a different Lions team?
I'm just saying, in general. I mean, is this a game that there's some slot fade type stuff out of that kind of stuff, and that's something we haven't seen the Steelers do a lot of, right, so far this season. But that's a kind of a specialty to his, is kind of working away, especially working to the field side, on a slot fade type situation there. That's Miller over his career has had some nice catches, been able to get down the field in that situation. I think you can really start stressing the defense to give them something more to think about than a Ray Mcleod working out of the slot. Because let's face it, if you don't have Chase Claypool this week and you're going to run some 11 personnel, what is that 11 personnel going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, not assuming Miller's in that mix. It's Johnson, Washington, and Mcleod.
I mean, that exactly. I mean, Johnson obviously puts some, get some attention in there, right? But what about the rest of it?
Right. No, I agree. I firmly believe Miller will get called up, and I think he should play. I think he's probably ready to play, has digested the playbook, and he's got a pair of 100-yard games against Detroit in his career, for whatever that's worth. So,
funny how those things stick in your mind, ain't it? Or my mind.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving 2019, went 9 catches for $140 in a 24-20 win over the Lions.
Yeah, definitely Wapner. Definitely Wapner.
Just a Rain Man?
That's our Rain Man, yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen that movie? That's another one you haven't seen, is it?
We got to play a game called What Movies Have I Seen? It'll be the worst game ever, but no, I've never seen. I mean, I get the reference, but I've never seen Rain Man.
We can talk football, but once we get away from talking about football, we're strangers.
Yeah, you lose me there.
Awkward. No. You gotta see Rain Man. That's what a great flick that is. All right. I'm tired of seeing Ray Mcleod get meaningful snaps on offense. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand. I like Mcleod in the return game when he's not putting the ball on the ground, but as a receiver, I mean, it's pretty underwhelming. So I'm all for Miller getting called up. I think he will be elevated and probably play. Obviously, he gets elevated. There's a plan for him, so he should play some amount of snaps in this game.
Look, if you're going to move forward into the second half of this season, and obviously you're not going to have Juju Smith-Schuster, and if you're obviously not going to play, my thought on it. I think Chase Claypool should be your big slot, but they have played him some in the slot. Don't get me wrong, but it's not been a priority of theirs. So I mean, this seems like a golden opportunity to have an experienced slot player in Anthony Miller, who's been around long enough, right? I mean, how many weeks has he been on the practice squad now? 5, 6? 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, it was signed a week or two before the bye, so at least about a month at least.
I mean, you got to have a pretty good idea of how you can use him out of there, right? And I mean, Ray Mcleod's not going to give you anything out of there, out of that position, or scare any teams, or elicit a lot of targets out of there. To me, this is a perfect opportunity to take a guy in Anthony Miller, who I'm sure the Lions, even though they have the old tape on him, are not probably preparing for heavily in this game. They're going to probably be focused, obviously, on Pat Freiermuth and Deontay, right? I mean, this is a golden opportunity to hello Anthony Miller and see what you can get out of him, because moving into the second half of the season, healthy Chase Claypool or not, this is a perfect opportunity. And apologies to Cody White. But I don't think he's your answer there.
No, and he's not really played at all on offense the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think it's a good summation of this Lions team, and then just overall.
What's the odds Anthony Miller comes out of this game as being, wow, what a big X factor he ended up being in this game?
I mean, to that degree, it's lower, I guess, just because of any, trying to call the shot for any one name. But I think he will get elevated. I think he will play and have some sort of impact on this game.
Okay.
That's where I'm at least. So, yeah, I think the last thing to note just overall, and the team has talked about it, reporters have asked about it. You got the Lions team, they're 0-8, road dogs, coming off a bye week. Dan Campbell shown a penchant to be aggressive with onside kicks and fake punts and stuff like that. You got to assume a surprise is coming. And whether that's some special teams play or a double pass, or who knows what they're cooking up. But you have to assume Lions here are going to try to run some sort of trickery to gain an edge in this game.
Absolutely. I mean, you have nothing to lose, right? So you go back a couple of weeks ago to the way, I mean, onside kicks, you name it. Any kind of trickery, you better have you guys be on alert status, because I think more than once you're going to see some sort of funny business, if you will, from the offense.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts here previewing this Lions team, Dave?
I mean, kind of blasé looking at them on tape, right?
Yeah, but you never want to underestimate that, because, again, I mean, they're 0-8, but 4 of their games, 4 of the losses have been by 1 score or less, and, again, 2 of them had come at the buzzer. Justin Tucker kicking a 66-yarder. I think it was the Rams. I think Zerline kicking a 55-yarder, I want to say it was, 54-yarder. So they've lost a couple of really heartbreaking games. So this really could be, not that it's great, but they could be a 2-6, 3-5 team right now if things broke just a little bit better for them. So, I don't want to take this team for granted.
Right. And obviously a more experienced quarterback than what they saw last week in Justin Fields, who took it to him in the second half there as well. So, we've seen it, obviously this past Sunday too, right? And then, as we mentioned, the Thursday night game between Ravens and the Dolphins just goes to show you how, this is the NFL. What did Mike Tomlin say this week? No Power 5 or no
FCS, no Group of 5
teams. Right. I mean, any given Sunday, man. So that said, this is a game I expect the Steelers to win.
Before we make our picks in that game, Dave, let's talk about our friends over at MyBookie. We'll also make our picks for Week 10. We're both 0-1. Both thought Baltimore would have much more success last night against Miami than they did.
That's right. Let's talk about MyBookie, Alex. When I gamble, I'm always looking for a way to get an edge. But at MyBookie, they double your first deposit, so you start with a leg up on the competition there. Don't just take my word for it. Head to MyBookie and sign up using promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE to get your money doubled and start winning today. Remember, good friends don't let friends win alone. So have your buddies use your referral link so everyone's all eligible to receive an additional 250% bonus on their first deposit. Plus, it's unlimited to redeem, so all of your friends can join the party at MyBookie using promo code TERRIBLE. That's right. Use my promo code TERRIBLE. Sign up now. Claim your first deposit bonus with MyBookie and use the extra funds to kickstart your winning season today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie, and that's at mybookie.ag.
All right, Dave, let's begin making our Week 10 picks.
Some interesting games. What did you think about how much of the Pitt game did you watch last night?
I was flipping back and forth. It was crazy. They get a big lead. Pickett looks sharp early, and then North Carolina comes back, and they get the win in overtime and all that rain. But I know there were scouts on hand, and don't make too much about Kevin Colbert being there because it's a very short trip for him. He's been all over the place this year, so they're going to watch all these guys. But, of course, I mean, it's a big stage. There were a ton of NFL scouts in attendance, GMs included as well, to watch Howell and Kenny Pickett. So Pickett feels like he's going to be one of the first quarterbacks taken this year. I don't know what the order is going to be, but he'll be up there.
Yeah, boy, shocking that Kevin Colbert was at Heinz Field, right, to watch to watch a game. All right, moving forward here, the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. Whoa, the Colts 10-point favorites at home against the Jaguars.
Ooh, you know what? Too big of a line for me. Colts win, Jags cover.
I'll take the Colts to cover that. I'll lay the 10. Cleveland Browns on the road against the New England Patriots. The Patriots are favored at home against the Browns, 2.5. Are you buying the revitalized Odell-less? Is that a word? Odellus? Odellus Browns. Patriots 2.5 at home versus the Browns.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but this feels like easy money to me. I'm going the Browns on this one.
Ooh, is this your stone cold lock of the century of the week of the year?
I guess I reserve that for you, but if there was such a thing for me, this is my Carl pick of the week.
Boy, you just don't know. I'll take the Browns. I'm with you. It seems like easy money here. I mean, the Browns winning straight up even at that. I'll take the Browns plus 2.5 points here. Be rooting for the Patriots, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, Falcons at the Cowboys. The Cowboys laying 9 at home against the Falcons.
Yeah, give me Dallas. I think they're going to be just angry coming off that horrible loss to Denver. I know Randy Gregory's out all of a sudden, which is a big loss for their pass rush. But I think that the Cowboys blow them out.
You know what? Give me the Falcons to cover this. I'll take the plus 9 points on the road against Dallas. Buffalo Bills on the road against the New York Jets. Bills 12.5-point road favorites in this one.
Yeah, I think Buffalo bounces back as well. That's a mighty big line. Do I want the Jets to cover? I'm going to go Buffalo in this one.
I'm going to go with you. I think Buffalo covers that big 12.5 line there. New Orleans Saints on the road against the Tennessee Titans. Titans at home, laying 3 against the Saints.
Man, I mean,
who are the Titans right now?
Who are the Saints without with Simeon a quarterback? I mean, the Titans are legit, man. We got to give them more credit. So I'm going to go Tennessee in this one.
Yeah, I'll take begrudgingly.
Because Kamara's out. Kamara's not going to play either. It's not looking like he's going to play.
Yeah, begrudgingly, I'll take. This has push written all over. This is going to be a 3-point game right on the line here. I'll take the Titans minus the 3 points here. Buccaneers back in business against the Washington football team. Buccaneers on the road laying 10. And I don't think the Bucs are going to have Gronk or AB in this one. Once again, it probably won't matter. But Buccaneers laying 10 on the road against Washington football team.
And is Chris Godwin playing? I know he's dinged up. Is he going in this one?
I don't know for sure. I thought he was, but I'll have to recheck on that.
It's like Greg Allman saying, fingers crossed that Godwin can practice today, according to Bruce Arians. So it's up in the air, but either way, I'm going with the Bucs.
Yeah, I'll take the Buccaneers to cover that 10 on the road. Let's see, Minnesota Vikings on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Vikings had a golden opportunity there in overtime to beat the Ravens last week. They didn't. This feels like a team that's close to just it coming all unraveled for them right now. Chargers laying 3 at home against the Vikings.
Well said. Give me the Chargers.
Yeah, give me the Chargers lay to 3 points here. Carolina Panthers at the Arizona Cardinals. Is DeAndre Hopkins going to make it back for this one? And who's going to play quarterback for the Panthers? I don't think it's going to be Cam Newton right out of the chute here. Cardinals laying 10.5 at home.
Yeah, I mean, is Kyler Murray going to play too for Arizona? Is it going to be Colt McCoy again? I mean, there's a lot of question marks here in this one. Bottom line, though, give me the Cardinals.
Give me Carolina to at least keep this like a touchdown or something like that. I think the Cardinals win, but give me the Panthers plus that 10.5 points. Eagles on the road against the Denver Broncos. Broncos laying 2.5 at home against the Eagles.
Are we underestimating the Broncos a little bit? Or is that a team that's better than, I mean, I know the Steelers beat them, but what's the line, 2.5?
2.5 Broncos, 2.5 at home.
You know what? Give me Denver.
Give me the Eagles in the upset here. Win outright. I'll take the 2.5 points there. Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know what to think about this one. The Raiders here in Vegas getting 2.5 points against the Chiefs.
I can't keep going with the Chiefs because I get burned every single week. Give me the Raiders.
Give me the Chiefs to blow them out. Them out. So I'll lay the 2.5. And the last one on the docket here before we get to the Steelers game, Rams at the 49ers. Rams on the road laying 4 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go LA in this one.
I'm going to go LA laying those 4 points as well, too. I don't think they have any issue there. And that brings us to the Detroit Lions at the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. This one has dipped down a little bit, I think, from the 9 points that we saw earlier in the week here. Steelers laying 8 at home against the Lions.
I think this one will be annoyingly closer than it should be, as it typically is for Pittsburgh. But I can't find a reason to say why Detroit would win this game other than the standard, turnovers and stuff like that could happen any given week. But I do think the Lions will pull out all the stops. I think they'll be more competitive. And these games just always seem to be close against opponents you don't play that often and a pretty new team overall. So long story short, I'm going Pittsburgh 30, crack 30 points for the first time this season, but Detroit 23, 30-23 Steelers.
All right. My terrible take, style points in the NFL don't matter, but is it time to see a style point win?
If it's not this game, when's it going to be? Is the question.
And that was my take, right? I mean, when are we going to see a complete game, on both sides of the football here?
Is this the week? You tell me.
I mean, I'm hoping for it. I mean, if we don't,
well, what's your score prediction? Is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Does your score prediction reflect a complete game?
Well, I mean, it reflects a win. It does not reflect a cover. So technically, no. I think they get a turnover in here, maybe of some sort. But I still think they probably give up, maybe a few 2 points. I've got to see this team put together a complete blowout win, and I don't think they have it in them. And hopefully, I'd love to be able to stick my foot in my mouth come Monday morning. I have the Steelers winning as 24-17.
Okay, so a pretty close game, a little bit lower scoring game too.
Right. I mean, in fact, Lions, give me the Lions plus the 8 points here.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what else. I guess we should get to some emails here, right?
Yeah, let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's get to some emails here. Let's see. Zach Jorgensen. Hey, Dave and Alex. Was impressed with the Dolphins' defensive performance last night. They played a lot of cover zero, and Lamar looked lost. 2 related questions. Do you think the Steelers will play heavy blitz against the Ravens? Do you think the Steelers should play heavy do you think the Steelers will play heavy blitz against the Ravens? Do you think the Steelers should play heavy blitz against the Ravens? As I've often signed off, you guys are the best in the business. No, however, comma required. Thanks, Zach from Salt Lake City, Utah. What do you think? What have we learned about the Ravens, if anything, from that game against the Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a team that worries me. That's an off night. That's not going to happen too often. And Pittsburgh's personality, as we talked about earlier, is not to cover zero, all-out blitz kind of stuff. Again, they're blitzing as little as ever under Keith Butler as DC. So I think you send maybe some more 5-man rushes because 4-man contains tough to do against Lamar, but I don't think you do the all-out kind of blitzes that Miami was doing last night, the cover zero type stuff.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I wouldn't mind to send some occasional numbers after him. I tell you one thing that sticks out even in that game last night, that Lamar Jackson, man, he probably could have been sacked 4 more times in that game. Mm-hmm. And he just if he can break that initial sack attempt, you better look out. That guy will home run you for sure. And he never seems to take. I mean, a couple of games ago, I think I pointed out him on a design run or something or a scramble that him getting kind of hit sideways in the knee and thinking, oh man. But I mean, other than that, you just don't see him get hit a lot. He does get sacked probably far too many times for what their liking is there. But I to answer the question, no, I don't think I try to adopt the Dolphins blitz heavy cover zero aspect.
Right, it's just not in Pittsburgh's personality. So you got to be careful of trying to just copy things that aren't things you already do. You got to blend stuff and find things that kind of work, things you already do and already scheme and already rep in practice. But just trying to pick up brand new stuff generally doesn't work well when you're trying to adopt other teams' personalities.
Bryce writes in and wants to know about the solution for a passing game involved a healthy Eric Ebron. With the emergence of Freiermuth, he thinks the Canada Tomlin need to go. I think the Canada and Tomlin need to go back, watch a lot of that old Gronkowski Hernandez Patriots tape and build their passing game around the 2 tight ends. Muth can be the poor man's Gronk, and Ebron can be the poor man's Hernandez. Split these guys out, detach them from the line, motion them, more 21, 31, and 30 personnel. He says Gentry is the 3rd tight end. You can probably still run some of those RPOs too. This becomes a mix of the Patriots and what the Browns are doing as well. Would love to get your thoughts. Look, if you've listened to this show for eons, back when the Patriots had Gronk and Hernandez, I often marveled at that because because that allowed them to be so multiple. Basically, they could do so many things with those two when they were in their prime with the Patriots. If teams wanted to go light with a nickel type personnel grouping on the other side, well then they could just collapse down because both Gronk and Hernandez were more than effective blockers in those situations. On the flip side, if teams wanted to go heavy against that, Hernandez. Well, both of them really, Gronk and Hernandez, were capable enough where you could flex either one or both those guys out. So it made them so multiple on offense because both of them had skill sets of wide receivers and both of them were above average blockers as well too. Can you say that about Ebron and Freiermuth right now?
No, you can't. It's a poor man's version of it, and so you get poor man's results, and that's not the optimum way to do it unless you have two really high level guys. The way that those two were, plus you're trying to do that stuff mid season, and that's not going to work, and it's not going to be here after the season concludes. So I mean, I get the idea, but this is the personalities. This is a base 11 personnel team, still is even post Juju. The tight ends are playing more; they are going heavier more often. But again, trying to replicate what other teams do without having the specific personnel or personality to do it usually does not result in good results.
Bryce, I get it. Look, I mean, like I said, I talked about marveled at that back in the day. Probably drove a lot of listeners away because of marveling at what the Patriots could do out of 12 personnel and stuff like that. You're missing the threat of the run aspect of it. I don't think, because Freiermuth, hopefully he'll become a better blocker. He's made some strides, but he's not there yet. And Ebron's more of a, I don't want to trust Ebron blocking a lot of base ends in the running game there. Now, obviously, you can do some stuff with putting those guys on the field and kind of spread them out, but I think if you do that, you're inviting a nickel package in those type situations. So maybe once the Steelers get that Bartholomew kid out of Pitt, right? A few years from now, man, have you? You know how I am with tight ends, and seeing that kid I think I just got introduced to him about 5 weeks ago, and noted him, and that kid's only a freshman at Pitt, and he looks like he's ready for the NFL now. Imagine, there's no way he plays out his entire college career there. For sure, and I know they have who is it, Kroll, the other tight end there, more of a pass catching tight end. That kid behind it, that Bartholomew, that he might be the real deal a few years from now.
Yeah, name to watch for sure. I know you'll be keeping a close eye on him.
For sure. Let's see. Where else here? Chris Lookhart writes in, so through the first half-ish of the season, what I gathered so far is everyone is beatable. If you make the single elimination tournament, you have a chance to win. It gives me more hope for this year. Thanks for always being there for my guys, for me guys. Haha, have a great weekend. Steelers win 30-17. Look, obviously you get into the tournament, anything can happen, but I've got to see a lot more from this team on both sides of the football. It'd be one thing if this defense was playing a little bit better to help prop up the instability of this offense that we've seen so far. But for me to have hope past from where we sit right now from this team, let's assume this team does get into the playoffs, and let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they could win one game. I don't have much hope past that, and I think that's even a stretch right now at this point. I think it starts on Sunday against the Lions, a team that you should be able to beat, really, and beat pretty good on top of it. I want to see a complete game out of this team on Sunday against the Lions to give me any kind of hope against. Look, 7 of the 8 teams that the Steelers play in the second half of the season are over 500 right now. The only team that's not is the Minnesota Vikings here. And obviously a lot of these games in the second half, let's see, you got 2 against Baltimore, 1 against Cleveland, 1 against the Bengals. You have the Chargers mixed in there. You have the Chiefs mixed in there. I mean, is this team in its present shape and form, even at 5-3 right now, how do you think it stacks up in these final 8 games, Alex?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And just Pittsburgh in general needs to play better down the stretch. They've just had so many collapses the last, 2-3 seasons down the stretch after being really good December and January teams under Mike Tomlin for the first, 10 years or so. It's been a really big difference. But this team has to score more points. You can't be 20 points per game and expect to compete that much in the AFC, even as much parity as there is right now. But it's week by week, and the mentality to me is just get in the playoffs, and you never know what can happen from there. But it's going to be a long road to get to that point in a very competitive and just jumbled up AFC and AFC North specifically.
Right. I mean, look, I invite people at the end of the year into the playoffs saying, ha, Dave, you suck as an analyst. You totally underestimated this Steelers team and all like that. I'm just telling you what I see so far on the tape, and what the advanced metrics tell me right now is that there is not much to look forward to, especially going into the second half of the season. Now, if you go out and you take care of business in the way you're supposed to against a team, against Detroit, the way you probably should have taken care of business against Chicago on Monday night, okay, we'll see. But I mean, as we've said all along, this team better be 6-3 come after this week because of the way the second half of the season sets up here. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to them being 5-3 right now. Really, really is impressive based on what the tape I think has shown us so far here. But I would feel a lot better if we're talking about, boy, they just mopped the floor with Detroit when we get together on Monday.
Yeah, it'd be nice just to have that game because, again, if it does not happen this week, the odds are not great of it happening at all this season.
Daniel Wilson writes in, Danny from Youngstown, Ohio, going back to last year versus Washington, Pittsburgh was up 14-3 at the half and ended up losing. This year up 14-0 on Seattle and needed overtime to win. And then last week versus Chicago, up 14-3 at the half and needed a Boz field goal to win it. Even against the Browns, Cleveland came out on their first two possessions of the halves and had great touchdowns drives, whereas Pittsburgh came out and went 3 and out. Do they not make adjustments at halftime, or are other teams just making better adjustments? They just don't finish teams and let them hang around. I also feel like Pittsburgh just puts on the cruise control and plays not to lose. It's just frustrating, and they let inferior teams compete with them. What do you guys think? I mean, you said a mouthful right there, Daniel. Daniel, we talked about things maybe that, Keith Butler and talking about this defense and how second half of games that they're not adjusting maybe to the adjustments. Well, as far as the offense goes right now, I mean, I'm not shocked. I mean, this team, even if they run well, that gives them the best chance to do other things. They're still not producing enough explosive plays yet, and unless this offense has the ability outside of end of game situations to chunk the field, I mean, it's going to have a level of clunkiness to it. You get into the red zone 2 times a game. You better hope you convert both those times to touchdowns, because if you don't, you're probably going to be a final possession type game every game.
Right. If you're not an explosive offense, it's putting up big points and kind of putting teams away, then they're going to naturally hang around and sometimes come back. And obviously, if you're up, at halftime, it's the opponent who's down that's making more of the adjustments, because they're the one who have to change their plan and script because things aren't working. I think overall halftime adjustments are a little bit overstated. They happen throughout the game. It's not like they only happen at halftime, and you can't make major changes at halftime and stuff like that. They happen so quickly. But I think whenever you're on the losing end, you're naturally going to make more adjustments, and then the defense has to respond to that whenever they see what adjustments the opposition, the losing team, is making.
Hey, Daniel, here's my concern even before the season started. Can the offense take enough of a step forward to help offset the expected step that the defense was going to take back? Now, the defense has taken a bigger step back than I even thought they might take back so far through their first 8 games. Or hopefully that starts changing Sunday and just a dominating performance. And on top of that, I don't think the offense, I mean, it's nice. They absolutely had to have Najee Harris be a successful run rate guy, because if not, the whole thing falls to what after that. Their inability to create explosive plays and push the football down the field, just haven't seen it so far yet. So there are more questions about this 5-3 team than probably most 5-3 teams, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just starts this week, but even if we do blow out Detroit, then again, I'm happy with that. I'm not mad about that. I prefer that, but the narrative will be, well, it's Detroit, and now can you do that can you really stack quality wins against the rest of the schedule? And that's what's really going to define the season, whether you win or lose against Detroit. It's how you handle what comes next is going to be what matters the most.
And look, I get it. Dave, shut up. They're 5-3. Yeah, they are 5-3, and that's the only thing that matters at this point. But if you're looking at it and trying to project what you think this team can be after starting 5-3 and even hopefully 6-3 come Sunday, got to see some gains in a lot of areas here, both offensively and defensively, and that's where I am. It just feels like this is a propped up 5-3 team at this point, and I've got something's got to happen on both sides of football to make me feel better about this team moving forward.
Yeah. I just want one game without a heart attack. Just one game where it's fourth quarter, 7 minutes left, and you're just cruising. Just for fun. Just one time this season would be nice to have.
Chandler writes in, Chandler here, and happy Friday to you fellas. Just a quick question today. I know we've covered this somewhat briefly, talking about maybe playing Wormley at the zero tech nose, and I know it isn't the traditional spot for those guys like Loudermilk or Wormley, but at this point, would those guys not offer more right now at the zero tech than maybe what you're getting out of Bugs right now, or even Carlos for that matter? Once again, happy Friday, guys, and here's to another hopeful victory Monday. Thanks for the best content in the game. Thanks, Chandler. Here's the thing. We talked about it, I think, in that last show there, but, it's all projections more than anything, because we haven't, it's hard to project a guy that you don't see, like Wormley specifically, just say, well, just throw him in there, and it might be better than Isaiah Bugs. There's no tape really to back that up.
Right. I wouldn't do it over Bugs. I'd do it over Mondo, though. Mondo cannot play nose. I mean, I've just watched him get washed too much. I mean, he's I know the D-line's hurting, but he's just playing too much in general. He's playing 10, 15 snaps a game, and he's just grading out negatively way too often. So I think any way to get him off the field, I know it's tough right now, but any way to do that is going to be key.
And I don't think Loudermilk's an option in there, especially not this early in his career.
No, he's too tall. He can't be 6'7" playing over center.
Right, and plus on top of it, you want to keep his menu where it is right now, because he's handling it well enough right now. I don't think you want to get into that aspect of it. I guess the more interesting maybe question is you get Carlos either back healthy, or you get a guy like Khalil up to speed.
Right.
Can either one of those two guys maybe give you snap for snap better results overall than Bugs?
I think as a pass rusher, they will. Carlos Davis's concern has always been against anchoring against the run. And that's kind of where Carlos was the pass rusher, the athletic guy. Bugs was the run stuffer. But Khalil, I don't know much about his game, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I'm willing to take a look at it. And obviously when Carlos Davis does get back, then he will have a role in this defense.
Right. Todd Gensler writes in, hey, guys, I'm thinking the Steelers win this Sunday, but it's disturbing that the defense continues to blow 14-point leads or greater in the second half. Do you think this is personnel or lack of coaching adjustments? Mcleod was clearly exposed, as if they continue to roll him deep. Mcleod was clearly exposed, so if they continue to roll him deep, it's going to continue to be this way. I think they will be top of the division this week and then hold on. At this point, do you think they will make the playoffs? Even if they are 6-3 after this week, I'm not so sure, he says. You're clearly the best to listen to, so thanks as always. Todd, thanks for the email. Alex and I kind of tried to reverse engineer the rest of the schedule a couple of shows ago there, and I think we kind of based that assessment off of this team going 6-3, right? So if they get to 6-3, I mean, you got to at least I don't think they can go better than 500 the rest of the way. But I think you can make a legitimate argument that they can at least win 4 of their final 8 games. And once again, I had this team going 9-8. I think you had them going
9-8 as well.
9-8. I think we when we talked about it a couple of shows ago, I can see them getting 10 wins, maybe, if they take care of business against Detroit. And I guess the question becomes, will 10 wins either win you the division or at worst get you a wild card? I think it will. I mean, I don't think all these teams are going to be about 500 like they are in the AFC right now, because at some point these teams are going to start cannibalizing each other. Mm-hmm. I think, and I think the AFC North included in that. So, from where I sit right now, do I like their chances of being a playoff team? Yeah. I mean, I do, but that's not the goal here overall. And I worry if we don't start seeing more moving forward, especially starting Sunday once again, is this team going to be just another one and done, Steelers team in the playoffs?
Right. That's where I had him at. I had them 9-8, 7 seed, one and done. And I don't know if I've seen enough to really change my mind there. But you get in the playoffs and you don't know who the opponent's going to be, and it's just one game. Anything can happen. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But it is about just getting to that point. And once you're in the dance, then, who knows?
True or false? The offense is better, even coming out. No, let's not use the last game. Let's come out of the Browns game. But I don't know how you can cherry pick this and to meet some sort of narrative. So let's not do that. From this offense heading into the game against the Lions right now, better than the Week 1 offense that they had. True or false?
Than the Week 1 offense of this year?
Yeah. Week 1.
True.
Okay.
I would say true.
I would agree. Now, what's a degree of improvement? Marginal?
I mean, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's the run game certainly has gotten a lot better. I mean, I know it wasn't perfect last week, but even it was better last week than it was the first 3 weeks of the season. So, I mean, you've certainly seen steps there. So, I mean, I don't know how to quantify it, but it's a step. I mean, with that run game being a lot more successful, this offensive line playing better overall from where it was, Week 1, Week 2. I mean, it's been definitely a step forward.
What would you like to see this offense do to give you warm and fuzzies moving forward?
I think it's the things that we talk about in terms of things they need to start really improving upon. Of course, the run game has to be, a staple of this offense, but the big plays, certainly, and then just being a more efficient red zone team while cutting down penalties. If you're a red zone team that's really efficient, you cut down on penalties, you get a couple chunk plays, and you have a decent run game, I mean, you're going to have a good offense. Maybe not a great one, but at least a good one with a very good defense and for most of the year at least. So I think if you're in that situation, you're going to be a really competitive team with a good offense, a very good defense, and solid special teams.
Can they count on the explosive plays coming the way that they've been coming?
No. I mean, how could you count on something that's been so inconsistent?
That's
what they have to improve upon.
I agree. They got to find, and, I think it's a tired narrative, once again, talking about being in the middle of the field past 8, 12 yards. I mean, either they're going to get someone that can win outside more consistently and Ben start or either that or Ben start dropping them right in the bucket, or they're not. It's nice to see these end of game quick slants to Deontay, but how can you count on that week in and week out of 1 yard catch, 49-yard run? It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, but can you count on that stuff to be differences in games?
Sure. No, I get that.
All right. I think we're running low on questions here. In fact, I think, let me see, I got Todd's there. All right, that's a good stopping point. Here's one more from David Ricards. He writes in, David and Alex, I thought Minka showed a few good hard hits in the first half. I don't recall that being a hallmark of his game. I know he hasn't had a great year by Minka standards, but I like the tone it set for the second half. Everyone had so much else to talk about this week. It felt like it was overlooked. Do you guys think he'll make more splash plays in the second half of the season, or stick to giving help in coverage? Alex, you do a lot of research on defense and charting, and what are you saying?
Yeah, no, we definitely talked about how physical Minka was, and I thought he played really well in that Bears game overall. I mean, takeaways and turnovers, they can be, lucky bounce or a little, hot and cold, and so it's hard to really predict. But I think he's playing a lot better than where he was. I thought he just had a first 2 weeks of the season were bad for him, and they moved him around quite a bit, playing in the slot, kind of not playing him in his natural, comfortable spot. They kind of moved him back to his home after that once Norwood got settled. They kind of had a better division of labor in the secondary with some of the sub-package type stuff. So, yeah, I think he's playing well. I think the turnovers will come. Will it be to the same degree as last year? Maybe not, but I think he's playing not at Minka levels of last year in 2019, but not too far removed from that either.
How spoiled did fans get, the first 6 weeks of Minka's career with the Steelers?
Yeah. That's a good point. Probably pretty spoiled. I mean, it's not always going to be that good. I mean, he's gone through droughts before. This is an even more prolonged one. I understand that, but yeah, I mean, it's the NFL, and once you do that kind of stuff the way that he debuted for Pittsburgh, teams notice that really quickly and make it a lot harder for that guy to continue those kind of turnover streaks. And so, I mean, again, there are ebbs and flows to it.
Plus, he plays a position predominantly of free safety, and tied to the post doesn't usually lend yourself to having a lot of turnovers overall. I mean, it's not like a Troy Polamalu where you did so much where you didn't know where that guy was going to be on the field. The tip passes, making those acrobatic. You know what I'm saying there? I mean, just the position in general that Minka plays, and let's face it, he's not Ed Reed, right? At least not yet.
Right. Sure.
Not a guy that's going to do a lot of baiting. And you know what I'm saying? That kind of player. Apologies to the Minka fans, but he's not Ed Reed just yet. Hopefully he can become that player there. But I just think I think overall fans did get a little bit of spoiled to maybe those first 6 weeks of him in Pittsburgh. Now that's not taking any way away from him as a player overall. I just think that, and look, he has missed out on a couple of turnovers this year. That's on him.
Mm-hmm. But he's also making plays that are big plays that don't go down in the stat sheet. Taking away that slant route last week that resulted in T.J. Watt's third sack. That's a Minkah Fitzpatrick sack. That's not a T.J. Watt sack, but it goes down obviously as Watt getting the credit for that. So there are things that are happening on tape that don't get recognized in the box score, but you can feel that impact there.
Right, but all people are going to look for is where's his interceptions, where's his forced fumbles, and it's not going well.
No, I understand that, but that's what we try to look beyond just the baseline stats.
And I think just because of that in general and the way he plays and the whole probability and knowing the opponent, because obviously they'll play AFC North, 4 more games in the AFC North. I think it lends to him probably making more plays in the second half. And I would expect him to make more plays in the second half than he has. And I'm talking about the kind that do show up in the stat book,
Right. Well, so far it's been 0. So I mean,
right.
The next one will be more than what he's had.
Okay. Well, there you go. I expect maybe double that.
There you go.
But long story short, I expect him to be more of a playmaker in the second half of the season. And I believe you do as well.
Yep. I agree.
All right. That should be a good enough place to stop there. So Alex and I will be back on Monday talking hopefully about a big blow. I look forward to sticking my foot in my mouth about this Steelers team and then putting together a complete performance against the Lions on Sunday. But however it goes, Alex and I will be back to talk about it. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. Make sure you get on the Twitter machine and shout out Dave Birkett too. It's one word, Dave Birkett, and thank him for coming on the show today. Excellent interview with him. Follow him and make sure you read his stuff online as well too, heading into the game on Sunday. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Let's see, what else? You can donate to the show. Go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. We've made some tweaks to the ad-free. Evidently, people that have paid for ad-free in the past, once their subscription expired, they didn't renew, they've been able to have ad-free access on top of it. Well, we fixed the glitch. So we're getting a lot of emails about this as well, too. Your login should still work if you're an ad-free member. Go in, log into the site, then you'll see the profile button upper right navigational bar. If you hit that profile button, there should be an opportunity for you to extend your membership, a blue button that way there. So obviously we invite you to re-up if you so desire, and if you're new to it, that aspect, $25 a year, we will have for at least through the rest of this season on top of it there. If you have any problems renewing your membership, or have any questions about that, email me, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com, and I've gotten a lot of emails lately. I'll try to take some time out and get you going in the right direction there. So we appreciate everybody who is subscribed that way. And once again, if you have any issues, send me an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.